Hi, thanks for joining us for a conversation with members of the Rutland Young Professionals and the Southern Vermont Young Professionals. My name is Sarah Gilbert. Joining me today are Laura Pierce, Alex Beck, and Sarah Lang. We'll be discussing the recent Young Professional Summit of Vermont in downtown Rutland and giving you all an update on what's next for both groups. The Young Professional Summit of Vermont is an annual one-day event for Vermonters to network, share ideas, and confront issues faced by the state's young workforce. Equal parts professional development and community action, the summit aims to empower young people to create positive change by connecting them with business leaders, policymakers, and most importantly, each other. We encourage anyone with an interest in contributing to the future of Vermont to participate. Thanks for joining me today, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So I'd love to get started with some introductions. I'd love to hear a little bit about what brings you here and what role you had with the summit.
Great. So my name is Laura Pierce. I was the co-chair for the Young Professionals Summit this year, and I'm a new transplant back to the Rutland area as of last year. I had moved away for about 10 years after school, and I now work for an IT company in support of the local hospital.
Great. My name is Alex Beck, and I'm the Workforce and Education Program Manager at the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. And I used to run the Young Professionals group there in Brattleboro for about 3 years. And I'd been to all of the summits in past, and I presented last year, but this year was great. And Sarah, who is our new Young Professionals coordinator, also attended.
My name is Sarah Lang. I manage the Southern Vermont Economy Project out of the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. Like Alex said, I'm the new Southern Vermont Young Professionals coordinator. And I am a new Vermonter as well. I moved here in March, so +1 for the Young Professionals.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've got two of us. Laura and I both grew up in this area. I should probably say why I'm here as well. I'm a board member with the Rutland Young Professionals. I've been involved for about 5 years now. And I'm super excited that you folks drove all the way here from Brattleboro to have this conversation, and I think it shows our collective commitment, and especially your commitment to really making the young professional movement in the state successful and strong. And we hope that the summit is going to be a big part of that future. Laura, I'd love to just have you describe a little bit about this year's summit, what happened, and kind of what we were hoping to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. So with it being in the third year, we were lucky that we had a bit of some of the groundwork done. The great part about the summit is that it actually brings people from across the state. We had close to 200 attendees this year from all corners of the state, and it's a great way to highlight the Rutland area. So there's people from all over the state who might not have had a chance to come into downtown, and we have meeting locations all throughout the city. And the programming for the day is really to focus on different elements that might be important to young professionals. So we try to be able to hit people where they may currently be. So if you're a young professional who's in college or who just moved back and is looking for a position, there's some education around how to look for a job in Vermont, how to network. If you're here and you're more established, maybe there's resources on home buying or wealth management when you're a young professional. And then there's more, civic causes and community service initiatives, and just kind of giving people an update on what's going on in the young professional realm. And this year, one of the greatest things that came out of it was that we were really intentional about connecting with the other young professional groups in the state. So we were just really excited to see both a broadening of where people were willing to drive to for this day-long event, and also just a robustness of young professional groups that were in attendance. So,
mm-hmm. Right. So we were at the Paramount Theater. We mm-hmm. had about 200 people, as you said. Not everybody was a young professional themselves, right?
Right. So that's one of the misnomers that we probably try to help dispel, is that although the organization and the organizations across the state are focused around developing a social and professional network for younger professionals, it's really also a way to attract and collaborate with other leaders of kind of all maturity levels across the state, so that we can both collaborate with and then also benefit from people who may be more established here, and kind of connect to those mentor-mentee relationships as well. We're so lucky, the amount of businesses that have come out in the Rutland area to support the Rutland Young Professionals throughout the year, but specifically for the summit. Heritage Family Credit Union has been a tremendous kind of keynote sponsor the past few years. And then we have representation from both local organizations and then state departments and agencies as well. And probably one of the things to highlight is, and thank, is really the local municipalities, and the mayor was in attendance this year and was able to give a nice welcome to everyone. But then we also had tremendous engagement from the statewide government offices. Governor Phil Scott was willing to take time out of his day to help us with a kickoff event that we had a couple of months in leading up to the summit. And that was a great way. We were covered by, I think, every news network and publication across the state. So it was just really awesome to see the awareness built from that. And there's also was a commitment from Secretary Mike Sherling from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And he came and gave, I think, an awesome update to start the day, just to kind of give everybody a sense for what the state is trying to do. One of the premises we should probably kind of state is that there's kind of a known issue of a decreased workforce in Vermont. And so part of what the Young Professionals organizations is both a network for people that are here, but then a support group to help attract a younger workforce to the area and kind of help with referrals and help with recruitment. So it was really neat to see some of the policy side of what Secretary Sherling is trying to spearhead, and just kind of get an update on what they're up to. So
Yeah, and I always want to talk about lunch first whenever we are discussing an event like this, but that's both for the food and because we had a really special part of the programming this year, which was a lunchtime roundtable that brought together all the young professional groups in the state. And I know, Alex, you and Sarah were both in attendance at that roundtable, right? Yeah,
and this year it really solidified something that I had always known, and it was that this is a great opportunity to learn from each other. So what differs with the Southern Vermont Young Professionals group is it's a workforce program of our organization, and so we have a staff person. It used to be me, and now it's Sarah.
And sorry, what organization is that?
The Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, and SEVEDS, which is Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies. So it's an initiative of these organizations, and it is staffed. But when I came to the first Rutland Summit, the first thing I immediately saw was there's a whole team of people, volunteers, coming together to put on an event like this. And so the first thing I did when I got back was said, okay, I can't do this alone. We need a steering committee just like they have in Rutland. I think you have a board. And so that really started this learning relationship. And then to have this year a scheduled lunch where so many different people from across the state came and said, you know, here's what we're doing really well, but also here's what we're struggling with. And then we'd say, well, in Southern Vermont we do this, and in Bennington they do that. And so that was a really great opportunity.
About how many groups joined you all for the lunch, would you say? Maybe Laura, you could jump in too.
I think we probably had close to 10 at the very least. So what was neat was we actually were able to tap into some resources and some connections, and were able to put some emails out in advance to the summit. And we identified that in every corner of the state, we actually were able to come up with this cool little infographic, but in every corner of the state, there is a young professionals organization. And so part of it was knowing that and helping to connect people with their young professional organization if they were just coming to the summit. So we probably had a number of those represented on top of that there are some industry-specific young professional organizations as well, which was kind of neat to hear about. So I know there's a couple of both industries and businesses in the state that have a really robust young professionals network. So they were there too.
I thought it was, I mean, being the new coordinator for the Southern Vermont Young Professionals group, it was really inspiring to be at that lunch and know that, you know, if I had any questions or wanted to learn about different things that each group is doing, you know, I wouldn't have trouble reaching out to whoever those leaders are and, you know, learning from the stuff that they've done already. So I'm excited to really like make those connections stronger than they already are, and learn from each other, like Alex had mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I think is really special about the summit is it does provide an opportunity for peer-to-peer learning. Mm-hmm. And we do have quite a bit of talent, I would say, in our young professional community in the state broadly. I know that, Sarah, you facilitated a panel for this year's summit, right? Do you want to mention a little bit about that?
So that came about because I am on the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, which was put into action by Governor Scott this past summer. It's a group of 15 of us from across the state that is basically our goal is to provide recommendations to the governor on how to best support and maintain the outdoor recreation economy. And so sort of through that avenue, I was asked to facilitate one of the industry panels in the afternoon, which was outdoor recreation. And so that was a really neat opportunity to not only play, you know, almost my three roles, one being a young professional, one being on VOREC, and one being, you know, in economic development. So it's nice to see when it all sort of fits together very neatly like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the example that you're giving here of that panel, and also, Alex, some of your work, you're pretty experienced with workforce development at this point, you would say, it really illustrates how our young professional groups are working directly with policymakers at the state level in an organized way to provide a voice to our young professional groups. Would you say that describes it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the excellent marketing campaign Rutland has launched recently also summarizes it well. And there are jobs here and we know it, but it's as much about the outdoor recreation, that is why people move here to work, even if you work inside all day. It's what do you do once you clock out that makes this a great place to be. And so looking at workforce development, you can't only look at skills training or only look at recruitment. This is a great, it's a great umbrella to look at all of these different issues about is how do we make sure people love where they live and not just love where they work, which is a big thing. And you know, outdoor recreation and your marketing campaign, I think, is doing a great job.
Yeah, the marketing campaign was another one of the afternoon panels, and maybe Laura, since those folks aren't here, maybe you could talk a little bit briefly about what that is.
Right. So they actually launched it, I think, officially just last week or the week before, but there's a new marketing initiative that has been spearheaded by the Rutland Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Rutland Economic Development Corporation, in collaboration with both the local municipalities and the and local businesses. But they were able to hire actually Mondo Media from Brattleboro to, which I think has been great because people, you know, that organization understands what it's like to live in a very similar economy, and they came up with a great slogan and campaign for it's called Real Rutland, which would be great to check out if folks haven't had a chance to. But just highlights exactly what Alex was speaking to, that the reality of living here is that you can have a great job and a great career in a lot of different industries, and then you can also enjoy so many outdoor activities and culture and things that maybe people don't always lift up and celebrate. And to that point, I think that's where it's neat to see collaboration between communities in a new way, and to have the young professionals spearheading some of that. And so it's about saying, hey, come check out like what's cool about Rutland, and then can we come down and check out what's cool about about Brattleboro. So I think having that relationship, and also kind of all ships rise, and having a positive commentary about each other is part of the great thing of something like the summit.
Yeah,
So.
that makes sense. I think that one of the things that I've learned from being involved with the young professionals is that the way we talk about our hometown, the way we talk about our community really does make a difference. It makes a difference for our quality of being here, in my opinion. It's much more fun to have positive conversations, but I think it also really gets to the heart of this marketing and welcoming new folks to our community. We know, as Laura said at the beginning, that workforce development, access to talent, these are big challenges for our communities and for our businesses. And one topic that I thought we might touch on a little bit is something that Alex brought up when we were prepping for this conversation, and that's succession planning. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you about how you're thinking about succession planning, maybe in your work with BDCC and CEVEDS, and also right within your Young Professionals organization.
Absolutely. From a wider standpoint, we're seeing not just workers aging out of the economy in the workforce, but also business owners and community leaders. And so succession planning is something that everyone should be thinking about really critically. And there's often not always great examples of how that's done. And again, I'll come back to looking at my assumption would have been every year the Rutland Young Professionals had the same person doing the summit every year, and that's the only way you get things done. And yet you rotated a lot of leadership in, and you had supportive documents, and the need to have that continuity, it seems like really forced you to build something out of nothing before the summit even existed. And so that's really what we're working on now is, we have a steering committee now, and now the group is really ready to have some new leadership, and I can serve on the steering committee. So I can, we're not losing that experience of someone who's been there in the past, but we're gaining perspective and other experiences. So I think that's what's exciting. I don't know if there's anything else that...
Yeah, like Alex said, I think having him being part of the steering committee is going to be really helpful, at least to me, and also I think, just the group in general, because he has that knowledge and know-how of sort of what has been done the past couple of years. And hopefully I can bring a little bit different perspective and but I think we're sort of moving in the same general direction as far as what we see for Southern Vermont young professionals and in our region.
So I'd love to hear a little bit, and any of you jump in on this, about what you think the value of having a young professionals network in your location is. The reason I bring this up is because a lot of people come to Rutland Young Professionals and ask, one, how do we get started? Are we part of an umbrella organization? How do we run our programs? And kind of what's the point of providing an event like a mixer? And I think part of the motivation for questions like that is that people are really curious to know what kind of community impact it makes to have this platform for young professionals to connect with each other. And I'd love to hear a little bit from you all about why you think that's important. We have several different perspectives at the table. Laura recently came back to an area where she grew up, and I think you both are new to Vermont, new and newer, maybe. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what kind of value you think that brings and why that might be a missing piece in some communities.
I can touch, just literally moving here at the end of May. I actually, even before I got the job at BDCC, I actually had a conversation with you. I had a conversation with Alex, just talking about working, because I was looking to come specifically to Vermont. And then, so just knowing that there were other young people around that have similar, likes and dislikes and, similar mindset was comforting. And, like knowing, okay, I can go, and if I do get a job in Vermont, there are those people around. And then also sort of as an example, after I had started at BDCC CEVEDS, Alex actually hooked me up with my now landlord. My boyfriend and I were looking for a place, and I was commuting from Massachusetts, and there was a post on Facebook, and Alex was like, "Hey, look at this," and I looked at it like literally that day, and had to decide by 2 days from then. It was a little hectic, but had we not had that connection, I think it would have been a lot harder. So it's just nice, to know that when I'm ready to sort of get my friend group established, or getting to know younger people in the area, that there is this group there. And obviously I've started utilizing that.
Yeah, and the interesting thing I think is a past Young Professional Steering Committee member lived in an apartment that was owned by the landlord, of Sarah's landlord. And so how things are done in our small communities is different. You know, I think we rely a lot less on digital technology to communicate, to share about what is going on at this small community-wide level. And so that almost encourages or demands that you be a part of this community, which is great. Everyone loves community, but if you're brand new, how do you find that and how do you build that? And so we really see that as a major goal that is kind of hard to find somewhere else. And so to be able to say, I don't know where I'm going to live, I've heard there's great cheese and beer, where do I get it? I've heard there's hiking trails, where do they start? It's less about specific things and more about helping an individual find what's missing. You know, I'll often say, if you have a friend, or if you have friends and no job, we can help with the job. But if you have a job and no friends, we can help with the friends. And that's and that's, you know, it's not one or the other. It's building community in that way.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I can share that. And Sarah and I think this is a fun story, but honestly, my mom specifically, but other friends of mine were sending me information about the Rutland Young Professionals when I was still living in Chicago, and even before I really had an intention of moving back. And then I started to consider it more readily, and it was helpful to know that there was like this safety net in place of this community that I said, oh, okay, I think I can have some shared experience with these folks. I can have some shared perspective. And they look like they're doing some of the stuff that I enjoy doing. And so it was kind of nice to know that there was this open community of people that I didn't need to find on my own, just through kind of one-off groups. And the reality is there are not, part of what the groups are doing are helping to attract younger professionals. So it's not as if there are extensive networks of even extracurricular activities that would focus specifically on young professionals within any individual community. So finding that and just having a place for that, I think, is great. And then I think what's been nice is our ability similarly to help with recruitment and being able to support the community in that, and also raise awareness of the young leaders in the community. So I don't know if this is something that you guys have found, but really one of the reactions that we've found has been a lot of the boards in town, when you're talking about succession planning, I think many of them were interested in who's going to be kind of the next generation, but weren't quite sure where to go to seek out people who may be interested in just taking on leadership. So what's really fascinating is, even within the Rutland Young Professional Board, I would say every single person probably is on at least one other civic board or one other board in the community. And so that's where you start to see these out branches of, like, I'm on the Wonder Feet Kids Museum. So that's kind of where I dedicate more of my community service time, but then I can help with the development of the network. And similarly, every person kind of has stories like that, whether it's that they've joined a running club because they started to come to Rutland Young Professionals, or that they've started to join a board or some other organization. So I think that for the community, for succession planning, for having kind of an incubator for people to grow their skills and network has been really pivotal.
Yeah, one of the things that we being me and fellow Rutland Young Professionals volunteers often say to students when we go to speak is exactly touching on this issue of the leadership opportunity that this succession planning need represents for us. We have a chance to plug into organizations and leadership roles that we might have to wait in line for much longer in a bigger community. And because we're in Vermont, because we're in a small town, we can start contributing at a high level really quickly if that's something that we choose to do. And I think one of the most important things our young professional groups can do is communicate that as an opportunity and help people plug into those important roles in our community, whether that be running our towns or running nonprofits, running businesses. So I think it's so exciting to see that there are so many strong organizations around the state, especially you folks down in Brattleboro have been such strong collaborators with us. What are you guys working on next for this year?
So we, most recently, we just wrapped up what we call our Career Social. So the BDCC helps organize and leads the Career Expo every year, which is a job fair, and it's very traditional. But after that, we have an opportunity for young professionals who both have jobs and are looking for jobs to meet up and hang out with the people who had just spent 5 hours behind a booth all day. So one's a very formal exchange and one's a very informal exchange, and that's where you can learn, so I saw where you were standing behind, but how'd you get there? And it's that more flexible opportunity to talk about how'd you end up in, of all places, Southern Vermont. And that's a really great thing. And our August event was on a farm run by young professionals. We helped pick their calendula and other flowers, and we had a fiddle player and a local food truck. So that was the last few events that were really great. And coming up, we have
a few things coming up. So in November, which it's almost November, it's hard to believe, we have our Friendsgiving. So there's going to be a lot of cooking and a lot of eating at the Brattleboro Food Co-op. We'll also be having our steering committee retreat in November. So this is really where we're going to carve out a chunk of time with our steering committee and, hammer in some details of those sort of bigger ideas that we don't have time to really get in depth during our monthly meetings. And then, in the near future, we'll be having a first-time homebuyers class. We'll be doing a class on taxes, I think in the spring, and then also our yearly gala that we have. It's never too late to start planning.
Never too early either.
Yeah.
What about Rutland Young Professionals, Laura? What should folks look out for?
So one of the things actually that we've taken from the Southern Vermont group was the gala idea. So we're in the process of getting some of the groundwork set for that for the second year. We had a really great time up at Mountaintop last year. And a lot of our programming is focused around the mixes that we have once a month. So really a networking opportunity, but we travel around to different businesses that host us. So those are always an awesome thing for people to check out. And then we have more of a grassroots effort of meetups. So the easiest way to kind of get engaged with us, and probably similar for you guys, is just to follow the groups on Facebook. And I think both of us just create events and then allow people to provide feedback. We had close to 1,000 people this summer say they were interested in river tubing with us. Thankfully, 1,000 people did not show up, but just to kind of see the enthusiasm for an activity was awesome. So those are some of the core things that we're involved with.
Yeah, and another thing that I'm really looking forward to is the launch of the Leadership Project Rutland, which is a training program that Rutland Young Professionals is helping sponsor for our region. I think Brattleboro has a similar program already going, but look
and
out
Rutland
for
Young
that.
Professionals is helping to support that in its inaugural year, as well as we do offer professional grants for small certification programs or conferences and things. So that's another opportunity if anyone's interested to reach out to the Rutland Young Professionals to check that out.
Great. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining me today to talk a little bit about the summit and about your organizations, what's coming up next. I hope it's been a fun conversation for you. I know I learned a lot about what the Brattleboro folks are up to, and I hope that people get a sense that Vermont is a really exciting place to be a young professional right now. So thanks so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.